Hello, everybody, and welcome to another empowerment session here at Bethany with our Link Couples Ministry. If you don't know me, I am Minister Tyrus Bush, and I am the pastor of worship and creative fine arts here at the church. And this is
Shayon Bush. I am married to Tyrus Bush, and we have 5 lovely children.
Lovely
And,
Children. She put that in there right there, but agree to disagree. But we do have 5 kids, a Tribe Called Quest. We've been married for 16 years this past November. Our anniversary is November 13th. For all of you brothers out there, always remember the anniversary, just a key. I'm just throwing that in there for free. Always remember the anniversary.
I give you a point.
Right. But we've been married for 16 years. We've been together for 17 years. And no marriage is perfect. No marriage is without flaw because the people who are in the marriage are imperfect and they are flawed.
Yes.
But the beautiful thing about marriage is that if you work at it, you can find success, fulfillment, and a functional marriage if you work at it.
Yes.
So today we're going to kind of have a conversation based on this anecdote that was told, and I believe that it was by Michael Todd. He was on a talk show, and the host of the talk show were kind of talking about marriage, and he made a comment like this. He says that one of the negative byproducts of dating is that we often bring that perspective and that MO into marriages, wherein when you're dating somebody, you are looking for their qualifications and you're trying to find what is compatible for you, and you want to latch on to that and hopefully create a relationship. But when it's not right, we are trained through dating, especially if you're a serial dater, we're trained through dating to get out when we don't like
the littlest thing.
Right. When we see something that we don't like, we look at the person like, oh, we're no longer compatible. One of the primary reasons for divorce is irreconcilable differences,
Right.
which basically means, I don't like you no more. We don't see eye to eye.
I don't want to consider you. You don't want to consider me.
Right. And I thought that was very profound and impactful because, it's so funny. The tool that we use to find a mate can sometimes train us to enact behaviors that will push our mate away and, ultimately cause for the demise rather of our relationship. So what I wanted to talk about today was, in this climate, in this social structure, how does marriage, I don't want to say one, but how does a couple stay together?
Stay together, yes.
Basically, how does a couple stay together? Or what are keys or what are principles upon which we can build a structure that will create a stick-to-itiveness?
Right.
Right. So the first thing that I was thinking about is that the difference between a dating relationship and a marital relationship is that you have gotten all of the preliminaries out of the way. You should already be, after you've dated somebody, you should be with someone who shares your goals, your ambitions, who shares your convictions, you need to be compatible,
Right.
For lack of a better term. And I think a lot of people move forward in relationships without fully being compatible.
Right.
But the first thing that I thought about was, when you're in a relationship with someone, you have to be committed.
Right.
And I think that is it seems so simple, but it's so profound. Like, you have to be committed to the relationship.
Right. Well, your commitment is a choice. So
Right.
that's what makes it, so profound. It's like you're choosing to be committed. Most people don't like to commit to anything.
Right. That's the
So,
thing. Like,
that's the thing.
it's so funny because, I love a certain type of cereal, But if I had to eat it every day,
Right.
I
You don't even want to commit to
I
that.
no longer want it. I don't want to commit
Right.
to eating my favorite food every day.
Right.
You know, because we are changed by our tastes, whims. We see something else that's better. But I
Right.
think the foundation of marriage is commitment. That's why in the marriage vows, it says for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health. Those are saying, regardless of what condition you find yourself in, you
Right.
have to be committed. When you don't feel like being married, you have to be committed to marriage. When
Right.
you don't feel like being in a partnership, you have to commit to the partnership. And I think that people are usually committed under the right circumstances.
Right. Well, that's why I think that it's important that couples link themselves with church and God, because I feel like if you can be committed to God, that helps you be committed to someone else.
Right.
And when you're not, it's kind of like whatever, fly by day, fly by night type thing.
Ain't gonna be no fly by nights. No, but you're absolutely right, because I find that a lot of people, like Michael Todd said, at the first sign of storm,
Right.
they want to get out. I often say that relationships are hard.
They are. Every relationship.
Right. But a lot of people don't want to commit to the hardship of relationship. They only want to commit to the honeymoon phase. They only want to
Right.
commit
The sweet
to
part.
the sweet part. They only want to commit to the, to the nighttime under the cover love. But, they don't want to commit to the hardship. And one of
Right.
my friends, who's a pastor, you know who I'm talking about, but he says they want the greatest hits, but they don't want to listen to the whole album.
Right.
And he preached that thing to me,
Yeah.
but you have to commit.
It's true.
Right. You have to commit to the whole album. You have to listen to
The
track,
good, the bad, the ugly, all of it.
all of it. And I think that most people miss that in marriage. They think it's supposed to be easy. They think love is supposed to be easy. They think that, we're always supposed to dote on each other. But
Well, you think about that. Like when you're dating someone, most of the time you're seeing that sweet part of them, that sweet side of them. You're putting up this big, front of who you are because I'm trying to impress you, and
Right.
vice versa. So when you get married and you locked in and you brushing your teeth in the same bathroom, using the same bed, you start to see things about that person that irk you.
Right.
Then you got to pay bills together. You have kids. Conflict arises. All those things that you typically can dodge, when you're dating someone.
Right. But that's why we have to understand that commitment is the backbone of the relationship. We have to commit ourselves to the process. We have to commit ourselves to the person. We have to commit ourselves to the institution, because we are really trying to emulate the type of love that God has for us.
Right.
God is committed to us regardless of our ugly moments, regardless of our mistakes and missteps, regardless of our carelessness. You know what I mean? He says that if we ascend to the highest heavens, he's there. But it also says that if we make our bed in hell, he'll be there with us also.
Right.
So even, when my breath is stink, you got to commit. You got to be committed to the stink breath. You understand what I'm
Not the
saying?
stink breath.
I mean, but you
But you can do something about that.
encourage me with some gum. Don't leave me.
It's horrible. But
Right.
people, have left for less.
Right. Exactly. And that's not what being in a functional, fulfilling marriage is. It's what defines your marriage is what you do in the hard times.
Well, I think that people don't, and that we're all guilty of this. You figure you get up there, you say your vows. You're not really thinking of the vows. I feel like people get up there and they're just reciting it. They're going after what the pastor or whoever is saying. And they're like, oh, in sickness and health, oh, rich or poor. But y'all not really thinking like, okay, we rich today, but what if we really do become poor?
Right.
You don't want to be negative, but you're like, what if this happens? Am I going to be able to do this with this person?
Right. Absolutely. When we got married, we were poor. So rich is gonna be easy. But
So stupid.
but really, when I married, I had the opportunity to marry my godbrother and his wife. And before they took their vows, what I said to them is, you are not making these vows for today,
Right.
but you are saying these vows to the person you will become, or to your future self.
Right.
For when you wake up one day and that person is sick, you're telling your future self,
Right.
I'm going to be committed.
Absolutely.
You know, that day, you're telling your rich self, like, we poor today,
Right.
but let me tell you something.
When we get rich.
When you get rich, I gotta still love you. You know, I
Right.
can't go somewhere and get a newer model. I
Right.
have to be committed. I
Right.
can't go somewhere and get a newer model. I
Right.
have to be committed to who I have right now. So
And that commitment is daily.
it's a renewed commitment every morning. It's a renewed commitment every morning.
And I don't think people go back and think about the vows. So it's like once you get into that conflict in the marriage, you don't even go back and think like, okay, what did I say before the Lord I was going to do? I was going to
Right.
have patience with this person and be understanding, but it's a learned
Yeah, and again,
process.
but again, that's why we're having the conversation, is to remind people of the fundamental principles of a successful, fulfilling, and a
Right.
fruitful marriage.
Right.
You know, so we have commitment. The next thing I kind of wanted to talk about was communication, because
That's the
any
huge
relationship
one.
therapist will
Right.
tell you that communication is key, but you cannot have proper communication, or you won't even have the desire to communicate if you don't have the commitment, because the communication is what we use to bring ourselves back on
Right.
the same playing field.
Right.
So when you do something that aggravates me,
Mhm.
the commitment in me goes to communicate to you so that we can move forward.
Right.
So that's why communication is key, because it's birthed out of our commitment.
Right.
If I didn't care, I'm just like, listen,
There's no need to communicate.
I ain't got nothing to say to you, and I'm not gonna say nothing to you.
Right.
But the communication is key.
I think that and this, listen, I've learned this over time. This is not something that I knew going into marriage, but I think you have to know your intention for what you need to communicate. Why you need to communicate something to your partner. And then how to communicate
Right.
to your partner. Like all of that is very important.
Yeah,
Because I used to say, I say this all the time when I talk to people about relationships. I always say, if Tyrus did something that made me angry, and then I'm in the car on my way home to you or wherever you are, and I'm in the car and I'm like, I'm going to be nice. I'm not going to be mean when I go in the house. I'm going to just like, hey, hon, like nothing happened. And then I get in the house and I'm like, hi, and I forgot all about everything that I said I was going to do because I forgot the why I needed to communicate, why I was upset, and how I should communicate what that is, or how,
Right. It's so funny.
how we can deal with it.
Yeah, Bishop has been preaching recently about the words that we speak, and he was talking about our prayer, how we need to speak what God speaks and say what God says. And the scripture that he uses is that Jesus says that my words are spirit and they are life. The part of that we can identify with is that our words are spirit. Right. So our words are what we use to convey what's in our minds and what's in our hearts.
Right.
So a lot of times there is a conflict. So when I want to communicate with you to let you know how I feel and bring us back to where we were.
Right.
But there's also this rage inside me. You know what I mean?
Right. It's a battle.
Right. So sometimes you can say the right thing. Your words can say the right thing, but the
say
spirit,
right. The spirit is wrong.
Right. The spirit is of rage, but the word is of life.
Right.
You know what I mean? But and that's what we need to understand when there's communication. There has to be an agreement within you first.
Absolutely.
You have to
commit to that. See?
Yeah, see, it's coming back full circle. It'll come back on you.
That's what it will do.
Right. So
so true.
So so there has to be an agreement between the spirit of what you're going to say and what you're going to say. Because if you say words of healing and restoration with the spirit of anger and resentment, it's not going to go over well.
Well, that's why I told you I forget what show it was, and the lady was saying, "Oh, you know, when you're going to your partner, you should embrace them first. You know, we say like, oh, maybe we should pray first or
Mhm.
something like that to kind of get you both in the right spirit. You know, embrace each other, hold hands while you're talking about something serious.
Right. That's always a good thing.
You know, be affectionate to one another, because when you go in with the wrong attitude, you can't communicate that way.
Right. And again, I say it all the time. Your nonverbal is more amplified than your verbal. So if you don't say it in the right spirit,
Right.
all I'm going to hear is the way you said it.
Right.
So we have that conversation all the
All the
time.
time. All
Like,
the time.
did you hear how you
Did
just
you hear
said
how
what you said?
I'm like, I said it like this.
Right.
I
Right.
promise you I did.
Well, in the replay,
In my mind.
right? It's in the replay.
Well-
You were like, Tyrus, da-da-da.
Yeah, I never. I
But
don't think I
in the actual, you know, it was like,
ever-
and you know how I am. I'm a very animated person. So in my mind, I'm like, I said, Shayon, you did X, Y, and Z. But in reality, it's like, Shayon, you know. So, you know, the Lord is still working on us. But but it's the reality of it. So we
but
have
it's a big. It's. I would say it's like at the top.
right.
Because there's so many things that you're going to have to communicate while you're married, because you're both evolving, growing. There's different things you're going to everything you're going to have to communicate is not necessarily going to be because you're angry. It's going to be things
Right.
like, this is how I feel, this is where I'm at in life, this happened to me back then, I needed you to know this now, or whatever you need to communicate is important. So you need to know how to communicate with your partner. I believe it's like at the top of the list.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
if you can't communicate, how are you gonna? It's like if you don't ever pray or read your word, how are you gonna connect with Jesus? You can't.
Right, because that's you hearing what he is saying.
Right.
He knows what you're saying, but you have to know what he's saying, and that's the goal of communication. The goal of communication, which is our next, you know, C, is collaboration.
Right.
The goal of our communication is for us to collaborate better because we're in a partnership.
Right.
Now, the reason that we have that communication is so important is because you need to know where I am.
Absolutely.
Mentally and spiritually.
Absolutely.
And I need to know where you are. So I need to listen to what you say, but when your heart is in the right place, you're often received better because we're trying to collaborate
Right.
in a better way.
And you're a team at that point.
Right. You're a team. Because again, what people don't realize in a marriage, they misinterpret what being one means. Being
You're
one,
separate.
right?
But
you are together apart.
Right.
You're together apart.
Right.
No, you're one unit. You're one team.
Right.
In the same way that the Bulls is a team. Not the Bulls are a team. The Bulls is a team.
Right.
Because a collective people form a singular entity.
Right.
So you're experiencing life outside of me. When you go to work, when you're spending time with your family, when you do whatever it is that you do apart from me, you are having experiences, you are having emotional responses, and you are dealing with your own spiritual attacks that are apart from me, and likewise myself. And we have to, through communication, collaborate so that we can be a team and move like a team.
Right.
Make the right choices, make the right decisions.
And you can't do that if you're not communicating.
Absolutely not. And the goal of communication is collaboration. And the reason why we collaborate is because our marriage is not just unto ourselves, but our marriage serves a greater purpose.
Right.
That's why it is through a marriage, let me say this properly, it is through a marriage that fruit should spring. It's not always that. You know, some people have a different path in life, but it should be through a marriage that fruit is produced.
Right.
And not just children, but examples, power, impact to the people around us. One of the things that was influential in the civil rights movement, I was reading an article that one of my friends wrote. It talked about the family and how the family, the marriage between two people, really facilitated that move throughout
Right.
the entire United States.
Right.
So, there's a lot of fruit that can be produced from marriage. So we talked about commitment. We talked about communication. We talked about collaboration. And I don't know how much time we have left, but on this part, I wanted to talk finally about consideration,
Right.
because I think you say this all the time. We watch these shows. I don't know if you watch them, but we watch these relationship shows like Married at First Sight.
Favorite shows.
Yeah, Married at First Sight.
Love is Blind.
Love is Blind. All of these different shows.
Ready to Love.
Ready to Love.
I'm always interested in
Family
how
or
people,
Fiance.
Yeah.
All of these, because we have these relationship conversations based upon what we see, we kind of talk about these principles.
Right.
So we watch these shows, and you say this all the time, that the people always think that they are the catch in a relationship.
Always.
People,
It's primarily the woman who thinks that
but
they're the cat most times.
right,
They feel like they have to do the least or bring the least to the table. Like, he better have this and he better have that. I'm like, sis, what you bringing? What you doing?
right,
It's everybody.
right, right.
It's collaboration.
It's a collaboration, right? And that's what I'm saying. The reason why that there's often not successful collaboration is because there is not successful consideration. And I think that people don't understand that the other person is a person unto themselves.
Absolutely.
And we always want that person to think like us. We want them to read our minds.
Right.
We want them to
Absolutely
meet our needs. We want them to sacrifice themselves for our dreams, our ambitions, without considering that they have their own needs, that they have their own ambitions, they have their own goals. And as a part of our collaboration, we are considering that we are two independent people trying to operate as one unit. We both have goals. My wife is an exceptional visual artist, in the sense that she is into decor, she's into home staging, she decorates for events, she does all of those things. So if you need any of those services, she's a party planner, she does weddings, birthday parties, bar mitzvahs.
Never did a bar mitzvah in my
But
whole
you
time.
will do bar mitzvahs. If you need any of those services, contact her. But she has her own ambitions that are outside of my ambitions. I do music. I am into entertainment in the sense of, television and movies and all of that type of stuff, where we kind of do two different things. And there are times where I need to consider her ambitions and kind of, sit on what I'm doing, and vice versa. I appreciate the fact that my wife, at every church that I've been at, she's always been present and right beside me. Where she could be doing other things, she finds it necessary to be with me in my endeavors and for me meeting my goals. And likewise, there are times where I have to do the same for you.
You do.
Huh? I do.
You do it well.
Why are you laughing?
Just
Why are you laughing?
because it's so different. But yes.
You gonna laugh and make these people think I'm lying.
No. You are. It's just very different rooms.
Right. No, it absolutely is a very different room.
So sometimes it may feel to the other person that they're doing more.
Right.
Or sacrificing differently. But it's the same thing.
Right. And again,
it should be the same thing.
It should be the same thing. And it's considering what is being done. I think a part of that consideration, people do often disregard the contributions of the other person because it didn't meet their expectations.
Right.
And I think that's a lot of times what people do in relationships. They want to say, well, because you didn't do this in the way that I wanted you to do it, you didn't do it at all.
Right. Or you didn't sacrifice as much.
Right.
Because I know, like, my parents growing up, my dad is in the music industry. And my mom was, at one point a stay-at-home mom, and a housewife. Because my dad was always on the road, my mom was taking care of the house and the kids. They were both equal because, she did her part, he did his part.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of the partnership. That is the partnership at work,
The collaboration.
right? The collaboration. And again, it may feel like
Absolutely.
you're sacrificing more, but it's really not up to us to determine how much the other person is sacrificing. Again, that is a completely different person than you. We're walking together.
Right.
We're in a relationship together, but it's a different person than you are. So we're not always considerate of what another person has to overcome
Right.
to be able to give you what they gave you.
People like to measure up everything.
Absolutely. It's like the
I cooked 4 nights this week.
right.
You only cooked 2.
Right. But again, there are things, I always use this example when talking to people. There's a story of a woman who, whenever she made a meatloaf, she would cut off the ends of the meatloaf.
Right.
Whenever she made the meatloaf, she cut off. So her daughter comes to her. She said, "Mom, why do you cut off the ends of the meatloaf?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, and she's like, "I'd cut off the meatloaf because my mom cut off the ends of the meatloaf." Right. I don't know.
That's
so
her.
She goes to grandma. Grandma, why did you cut off the ends of the meatloaf? I don't know, because my mom did. Ask great grandma. She goes to great grandma and she says, "Great grandma, why do you cut off the ends of the meatloaf?" She said, "I cut off the end of the meatloaf because the pan that I had was too small, you know what I mean, to fit the meatloaf. So I always cut off the end so it could fit in the oven properly."
Right.
So a lot of us think that things are supposed to be done in a specific way, in a certain way. We think that our marriage should look like our parents' marriage.
Right.
But your parents are two different
That's
people.
them. And you don't even know why they do or have done the things that they've done.
Right. So you can't look at your wife's sacrifice and say, "Well, my mom cooked every night. Right. And you only cooking one night a week." Well, your mom wasn't working nights. You know what I mean?
Right.
Your mom got off of work at 12 o'clock, so she had time to come home.
Your mom had 1 baby.
Right.
I got 5.
Right.
You know, it's totally different.
So she spoiled you.
Right.
You know, that's kind of how I talk to people, but you know, I'm a little harsh. But
the real is real.
The fact of the matter is, we have to be considerate of the state of the person that we're in a relationship with. And most of us aren't there because it goes back to the top.
Yeah.
The statement that Michael Todd made is that when we're dating, we're not really looking at how much we can give.
Right.
We're only looking for how much we can get.
Right.
And that's why we'll bring this dating mentality into marriage, because when our needs are not being met, when our goals are not being supported, when our whims are not being fancied by the other person,
right.
We're ready to get out. But in order for us to stick together, we have to have commitment that springs forth communication.
Right.
And without communication, there is no collaboration.
Right.
And for us to ultimately collaborate, we have to be considerate of the other person that we are in a relationship with.
Right.
On a basketball team, there are different roles for a reason.
Right.
You know, I can't get mad. Well, I can get mad at Anthony Davis because the man can't stay healthy. Jeez.
Poor Anthony Davis.
Anthony Davis is going to be the death of me. But anyway, but I can't get mad because Anthony Davis is playing center and I want to play center.
Right.
That's his role.
Right.
That's his responsibility. He doesn't always play the number 5 position because Anthony Davis can play any position on the court. I just want y'all to know that.
Oh my goodness.
But anyway, you know, we have to be considerate of what the other person's role is and what it takes for them to sacrifice what they have. You know, the woman in the temple only had a mite to give. Mm-hmm. You don't know what it took for her to give that. Mm-hmm. You know, so just because you have an abundance of patience to give,
or abundance of time,
an abundance of time,
right.
an abundance of, you know, whatever it is, doesn't mean that you are superior or unequally yoked.
Right.
You are with somebody who I believe, and you need to believe, is as committed, as open to communication and collaboration and consideration that you are. So I think if you observe all of those C's in a relationship, you can find a fulfilling, successful, fruitful marriage.
Yeah, I think all of those things will help you get through. I always like when Jakes talks about the different seasons of marriage, because marriage is not going to always be the same. Sometimes your partner's going to be grieving, or they're going to lose a job or, something like that. And you're going to have to know how to kind of tweak,
Right.
your marriage to take care of your partner.
Right.
It has some seasons going to be super, super happy. Some aren't.
Right.
Some seasons are going to take more work and just that renewed commitment that you thought
Right.
you had. Sometimes you think you're, like, oh, I'm good. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And you're like, no, I'm not. I'm
Right.
doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right. And
Or
that's
all I can do.
but that's the key. It's for both of us to remember all of the C's, or for both of you in your relationship to remember all of those C's and continue to go through that. Am I committed? Yes, I'm committed. Well, if I'm committed, then we need to collaborate. We need to communicate so that we can collaborate. And
Right.
I need to be considerate of what they're going through. Realizing that we are two different people coming together to be one.
Right.
So, for right now, this is just the beginning of this conversation.
Part one.
This is part one of this conversation because I do believe that there is a need in this social climate with social media,
Yes.
with
And we started out at the start.
Thank God. You know what I mean? Because there were some
Social media
people
just had become a thing.
in my past who would have just tried to do some things on social media. I ain't talking bad about nobody, but it just is what it is. No, I'm
Facts
joking.
are facts.
I'm joking. But we got married at the beginning or the onset of social media.
Right.
But for couples these days, couples that are younger than us, and even couples that are older than us, because a lot of these older people on Facebook too much.
Yeah.
Put the Facebook down.
Put it down.
That's my word for the day.
I always said Facebook should have age, because when Facebook first started, I was in college, and you had to have a legit college email to get on Facebook.
Right.
I don't know what happened to that.
Mark Zuckerberg got greedy.
Who opened it up?
Mark Zuckerberg got greedy and said, I need everybody on this thing so I can make $1 billion.
Right.
But yeah, so on social media, we have so many distractions, so many things that take our attention away from the commitment that we're supposed to be in.
Right.
I see a lot of people, and let me say it like this. So when we were, before social media, our social circle was smaller.
Right.
Our social circle was smaller. So, and I'm saying this with an asterisk next to it, there were less people who would be distractions in our relationship.
Right.
But now that we have social media, there are even more distractions and even more people who can pose a threat to our level of commitment, communication, collaboration, and
People are
consideration.
Tempted. People are measuring their relationship to other people.
Right.
Relationship. You have no idea what's going on, but
right, because they're putting images out there and they are communicating messages out there that conflict with the fundamentals of marriage. Marriage is supposed to be outside of abuse, outside of, any gross negligence.
Right.
It's supposed to be an unconditional, unbreakable bond between two people that emulates the commitment that God has for us.
Absolutely.
So, in part two, we'll explore more on how to stay connected and stay together in these last and evil days. It's
Well, thanks so much for tuning in with us.
Thank you, and we'll see you next time on our Link Couples ministry here at Bethany Baptist Church. Love y'all.